السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه، والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد, inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue where we left off in the Fiqh of Tahara lessons, and we are currently in the midst of discussing Ahkam al-Ghusl, the ritual shower. So the next mas'ala pertaining to ghusl is with regards to undoing, someone who has long hair, undoing a ponytail or braids. So it's not that common amongst much men nowadays, but for sisters that tie their hair into a ponytail or into braids, do they have to undo their hair when they're making ghusl for it to be correct or not? This is the mas'ala here. So there is various opinions on this matter here. So the first opinion is that neither men or women are obliged to undo their hair for ghusl, whether that is following janaba or hayd. As long as the water reaches the scalp and between the hair. And this is the opinion held by Al-Malikiyya wa Shafi'iyya, one of the two opinions in the madhab of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. And the second opinion, actually we'll just go over this one first here in detail, and we'll move on to the second one. So Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says in this regard that he mentions that this is the opinion of the majority of scholars, that it's unnecessary to undo braided hair or hair that's tied in a ponytail as long as the water is reaching the scalp and between the hair. And then he also mentions though that if water is unable to reach within the hair or the scalp due to the way that it's tied, then in this case undoing them becomes obligatory. And some of the evidence that they use in this opinion are as follows. We have a hadith that's narrated by Salama radiallahu anha, in which she says that she told Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that she kept her hair closely plaited and asked whether she should undo it when washing after al-janaba. And he said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that no, it's enough for you to put 3 handfuls of water over your head and then pour water over yourself and you will be purified. And this hadith is in Sahih Muslim. And we have another hadith from Ubayd ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu, in which she says that it was conveyed to Aisha that Abdullah bin Amr ordered the women to undo the plaits of the hair on their heads. So someone informed Aisha radiallahu anha that Abdullah bin Amr was ordering the women to undo their hair for their ghusl. And then she said, radiallahu anha, she's like, how strange is it that Ibn Amr orders the women to undo the plaits of their head while taking a bath? Why does he not order them to shave their heads? I and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam took a bath from one vessel, and I did no more than this, and I poured 3 handfuls of water over my head. So Aisha radiallahu anha in this hadith here is also in Sahih Muslim. So Aisha here, she's making a strong inkar upon Ibn Amr because he was commanding the women to undo their braided hair before performing ghusl so that it is correct. So she goes so far as saying, why doesn't he command them to shave their heads as well? Indicating that the woman's not required to undo braided hair, and this is regardless of whether it's from janaba or hayd. Okay, because neither janaba or hayd is mentioned in this narration, simply it's mentioned just ghusl, ala al-itlaq. So according to Aisha, this idea of having to untie the hair is totally unnecessary or incorrect. And we also have another narration, the Asma radiallahu anha, she asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam about making ghusl after menstruation. And he said sallallahu alayhi wasallam that it's a very lengthy hadith, I'll just take from what we need. He said sallallahu alayhi wasallam for them in regards to washing the head to pour water on their head and rub it vigorously till the water reaches the roots of the hair. Then she should pour water on it. And then he goes on to say sallallahu alayhi wasallam about making ghusl after janaba, or in the state of janaba. Then he said sallallahu alayhi wasallam in regards to the head, then to pour water on her head and rub it until it reaches the roots of her hair, and then to pour water on her. So for both instances, for both al-hayd wal janaba, he sallallahu alayhi wasallam did not command them that they have to remove or untie their braided hair. And like I said, this hadith is in great detail. This hadith is in great detail, but nevertheless of the great detail which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained to her how to perform ghusl, he did not indicate that untying the hair was necessary. So, as we can see from this narration here, the only thing that's required, he says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, فَتَدْلُكُهُ حَتَّى تَبْلُغَ شُؤُونَ رَأْسِهَا, that she should pour water on her head and rub it until it reaches the roots of the hair. Okay, so there's no mention of undoing the hair. And it's also another narration also on as Marwiyan an Nafi' radiallahu anhu, that he said the women of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, and Nafi' is Mawla ibn Umar, is the servant of Ibn Umar. Nafi' radiallahu anhu, he used to say that mentioned that the women of Ibn Umar, they used to perform ghusl from hayd and janaba without undoing their hair, rather ensuring the water reaches the roots of their hair. Okay, so these are all the adillah they use, and then they also use a hadith which is it's a hadith in Tabarani, but it's hadith da'if. I'm not even going to go over that. But without a doubt, before I proceed on further, this is Wallahu a'lam, al-qawl al-rajih fil mas'ala, that this is the correct opinion, or the most correct opinion, that it is not required for a man or a woman to undo her tied hair if her hair is in braids in order to perform ghusl, whether that's from janaba or hayd or hatta nifas. Can you just unplug that microphone so that I can stop, please? So, there is another opinion that a man must undo his hair, but a woman is not required to do so, and this is held by the Ahnaf and Imam al-Shawkani, rahimahumullah. However, there is no authentic evidence which indicates any which indicates or distinguishes between either of the genders. Okay, so it's a weaker opinion, and there's a third opinion that a woman must undo her hair after hayd, but not due to other reasons. And this is the second opinion of al-Hanabila, some of the Malikiyya, al-Zahiriyya, Ibn al-Qayyim, who's Hanbali, and Al-Hasan al-Basri wa Tawus. And they say, or they mentioned a narration from Salama radiallahu anha, in which she says that she told, the one that we just mentioned beforehand, that she told Rasulullah that she kept her hair tied very closely, and whether she had to undo it when washing, making ghusl after sexual intercourse or defilement and janaba. And he replied, no, it is enough for you to throw three handfuls of water over your head, and then pour water over yourself, and you will be purified. So where is the dalil here? They are saying that since janaba was mentioned specifically, it indicates that it's distinguished from hayd. Okay, because she's asking in specific about janaba. Okay, so their opinion is that a woman must undo her hair after hayd, not after janaba. So because this narration mentions specifically the ghusl of janaba, and there's no indication that hair must be untied, they say that the default, or for hayd, because it's not mentioned in this narration for menstruation, that it must be untied. Okay? And also, they also use another narration, which before we go on, what do you guys think about that istidlal there? The use of that as evidence. Is that a strong evidence? Because janaba is mentioned in specific, that means that hayd, and there was no mention of untying braided hair, that for hayd you have to. There's no indication to us, like, where is the rule or where is the dalil that specifies that the default is untying the hair? We do not have anything that states that by default, therefore you cannot extrapolate that because the ghusl of janab was mentioned that the hair does not need to be untied. That does not mean that there's any difference between that ghusl or any other ghusl. Okay? Specifically because they are using this to say that the default is untying, which has zero evidence to support. They also use another narration, which is regarding the story of the farewell pilgrimage, the Hajjat al-Wada' of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And when Aisha radiallahu anha was on the Hajj, she was menstruating radiallahu anha. And she mentions in the narration that she did not do a tawaf or sa'i because she was on menstruation. And she was upset about that, so she complained about it to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then he advised her to undo her braids. Okay, this is the shahid here, to undo her braids, to comb her hair, and to enter talbiyah for Hajj, and to leave the Umrah. So I did that, she says, and then when we had completed Hajj, he sent me with Abdurrahman, which her brother, the son of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and they went to Tan'im, where she can make ihram and enter into ihram and then perform her umrah after they were done Hajj. And he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that this is the place of your umrah. Now, subhanAllah, very interesting. So people that this is just a side point or a tangent, people that they go to make umrah or Hajj and they're there, they want to do a second umrah, they go to a Tan'im to make their intention, to re-enter into ihram, to perform umrah. And there, it's now, subhanAllah, after this hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, there's a masjid there that's called Masjid Aisha, and this is the place where people go to make ihram and enter from. Anyhow, so the shahid here was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He told her, because she was menstruating and she could not do the umrah prior to Hajj, he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam advised her to go untie her braids, comb her hair, make a ghusl, and then go on to perform her Hajj. Okay, to leave off the Umrah, do her Hajj. Then after the fact that she was upset she never did it, that's when he told her to do Umrah afterwards. But where's the shahid here? Is that he told her to undo her braids. Okay? So this goes to show that, according to them, that you have to undo your braids because for the ghusl of al-hayd. Is this a strong dalil here? This hadith is authentic. Okay, hadith is authentic. Is this strong dalil? Is this strong evidence to support the argument? What do you think, Hamza? Yeah? But also mentioned in the narration, he told her to undo her braids. He also told her to comb her hair as well. So is combing the hair also wajib as well? How can you make the difference between the two? Okay, so this, none of the ulama, just FYI, none of the ulama, they consider combing the hair to be wajib. Okay, it's combined with undoing the braids. Okay, and this also demonstrates further that also undoing the braids is not wajib. Ibn Rajab rahimahullah wa radiyallahu anhu of the Hanbali madhab, he says that this dalil here, this evidence or this hadith is not evidence to support this argument. Ibn Rajab, he says that this hadith here doesn't support the claim they are making. How so? He says, which is very, if you pay close attention to the narration of what's mentioned, that Aisha radiallahu anha, why didn't she do the Umrah prior to the Hajj? Why didn't she do the Umrah? Because she was menstruating. So when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam told her to go and undo her braids and comb her hair and perform ghusl, what was that ghusl for? Was it because she was menstruating? To purify from menstruation? No, it wasn't. So this is Ibn Rajab's point, is that this ghusl here isn't for purifying after menstruation, because she was upon hayd. That's why she didn't do the Umrah. So she's not making ghusl from the hayd, or else she would have went on to do the Umrah, right? But rather, she was making ghusl for what? For ihram, to enter into hajj. Astaghfirullah, to enter into ihram to perform hajj. So the ghusl that he told her to do was the ghusl to enter into ihram while she was menstruating, so she can perform the manasik of al-hajj. Okay? And this is similar to Asma bint Umays when she was ordered, when she had nifas in the Hulayfa, to perform ghusl and then perform hajj as well. Okay, so if you guys recall, we took a dars before Ayyam al-Hajj. Shaykh Mu'izz went over the ahkam of al-Hajj. This ghusl to enter into ihram, what's the hukm of the ghusl? Is it wajib? Is it sunnah? What is the hukm of the ghusl for ihram? It is sunnah. Okay, so he's telling her sallallahu alaihi wasallam to make ghusl of ihram, which is only a sunnah, and through that ghusl to also undo her braids. So therefore you cannot say undoing the braids is wajib to perform ghusl, because the ghusl she was making to begin with is a sunnah. So how can you say that it's wajib to undo braids because of a sunnah ghusl when we have authentic ahadith that say a ghusl that is wajib from hayd and from janaba, there was no instruction to undo the braids. So you cannot apply this to, you cannot say it's wajib to undo the braids even for a sunnah ghusl. It would just be sunnah to do that, or recommended. Let alone to say it's wajib to undo in a fard ghusl. Okay? This opinion, they also try to utilize a hadith from Anas ibn Malik, that's in Mu'jam al-Tabarani, that clearly states evidence that a woman must undo her hair for a ghusl due to hayd. However, this hadith is da'if, okay, so there's no need to go further into that because it's a weak hadith. It's not usable for this, okay? And then there's a fourth opinion that a woman must always unbraid her hair, held by al-Nakha'i, rahimahullah. Al-Nakha'i, but it's a weak opinion, so we're not going to go into any of that. So, al-qawl al-rajih wallahu a'lam is that undoing the braided hair, what's the hukm on it? It's not wajib to do that. What's recommended, or what's necessary to do is to pour water over the head. The sunnah is to pour water over the head 3 times and just ensure that the water reaches the roots of the hair and between the hairs. The next and the last mas'ala regarding the ghusl we're going to take is the issue of washing the feet in a separate place. Okay, we kind of mentioned that earlier on. As we have in one narration where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he was ending his ghusl, he moved to a separate location and he completed to wash his feet in a separate place. And we said the reason why he did that was what? Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Anybody recall? Why did Rasulullah switch places to wash his feet? Because he was making ghusl in a place that had a dirt floor. So because of the water being poured, he's pretty much standing in some mud. So he moved to a place where it's clean so he can wash off his feet, alayhi salatu wasalam. So in our day and age, this doesn't, for the most part, does not really apply because majority of people making ghusl are doing it in like a bathtub or in a place that's paved. Okay, so talking about this is just really, it's really for the application of the one who wants to abide by the sunnah as much as possible like Rasulullah did sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? So out of love and the veneration for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we'll go a little bit into the sunnah here, and we'll just touch on something that's important regarding this. So when he made wudu in the ghusl, okay, I'm not going to go over the narrations because we took it in depth in the previous class, but when he made ghusl, we took the steps of al-ghusl al-kamil, okay? And part of that is that he makes wudu, correct? Tamam. So, did he delay washing his feet? Does it matter when you wash your feet? Did he delay the washing of the feet of the wudu until the end? Or it doesn't matter? Or he did it during the wudu and then he repeated it afterwards? Okay, this is what we're going to look at now. So, the first opinion held by the ulama is that when making ghusl, you perform the sunnah, which is making wudu, and that during ghusl, this washing of the feet of the wudu is delayed until the end, where you move to a different place, or it's just delayed till the end. Yani whether you move to a different place or not, because it's not muddy or not, but you delay or you defer washing the feet of the wudu until the very end of the ghusl. This is held by Al-Hanafiyya, Al-Malikiyya, or some of the Malikiyya, I should say, and some of the Shafi'iyya as well, and the Imam Ahmad, rahimahumullah. And the second opinion is washing the feet with the wudu simultaneously. So they say that you wash the feet while you're performing the wudu. Okay? And this is the second opinion of the Malikiyya, and also a second opinion of the Shafi'iyya. And then the third opinion is that you wash the feet with the wudu and you wash them again at the end of the ghusl. And this is a third opinion in the Hanbali madhab. And just for the record, you'll find in many cases that within the same madhab there will be lots of khilaf. You'll have multiple opinions amongst the scholars within the same madhab. Okay, and this is an opinion. This is an example. And very frequently you'll find that in the madhab of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, in specific, sometimes 3-4 different opinions in the madhab of the Hanbali madhab alone. Okay, so it just shows how vast the knowledge is of the scholars, subhanAllah. Okay, so Ibn Muflih, he said, rahimahullah, that one should repeat washing the feet in another place, okay, meaning that they wash the feet during the wudu and then they once again repeat it in another place. And it's also been said that he does not repeat it if there is no mud or something similar to dirty the feet. Okay? And what they say, which we covered previously, but I'm just going to skim over it quickly, is that they argue that in the hadith of Maymuna radiallahu anha, the ground was dirty, as we mentioned. So had he not moved, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his noble feet, alayhi sallam, would have become dirty. Okay, they would have had mud on them if you just concluded it right then and there. But in the hadith of Aisha that we took, radiallahu anha, it wasn't the case. And that's why the narration differs slightly. Imam Shafi'i says, as we just mentioned, there's two views from the Shafi'i on this. He said that the most authentic and well-known, which is chosen from them both, meaning both of the narrations, is that he finishes his wudu by washing his 2 feet. And the second is that he delays washing his feet, which is the weaker view. This is the statement of Shafi'i. The narrations of Aisha are interpreted according to what is clear, meaning that the other narrations are dependent on the interpretation, so they can both be reconciled as we have mentioned. As for what is well-known and authentic, then it is to act upon the apparent of the well-known extensive narrations of Aisha and Maymuna radiallahu anhum altogether pertaining to the wudu prior to salah. So what is apparent is to complete the wudu, and by default, as is his well-known custom, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he would repeat washing his 2 feet after moving to remove the dirt, and not due to the janaba, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Therefore, the feet would be washed twice, and this is what is best and what is preferable. Okay? And where they got this and why it's more authentic, and this is a qawl al-rajih, wallahu a'lam, but why would we say that is because in the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, what does it say? It says, ثُمَّ يَتَوَضَّأُ وُضُوءَهُ لِلصَّلَاةِ. So she said in the hadith that he used to make the wudu like the wudu of the salah. So in the salah, when you're making wudu to come to salah, how do you conclude your wudu for salah? You wash your feet. So what's understood, because she said the wudu of the salah, that he did a complete wudu and washed his feet therein, and would only move to a separate location to wash his feet again for a second time, if there was a need to do so, like his feet being covered with some dirt or mud or the likes of that. Okay? And this, like I said, is al-qawl al-rajih, wallahu a'lam. Okay, now I want to just touch on something that's extremely important and many people don't think about when performing this ibadah or the ritual of al-ghusl. Okay? And that is as follows. We talked about there being two types of ghusl. One of them being al-ghusl al-mujzi, or like the one that just suffices somebody to be purified from al-hadath al-akbar, janaba, hayd, or nifas. And then we talked about al-ghusl al-kamil, which refers to the person performing the ghusl according to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all the steps that's mentioned in the hadith, like washing the hands and the private parts, to making the wudu for the salah, and pouring water over the head 3 times, and then washing the rest of the body, and then if need be moving to another place to wash the feet. Okay? So we said that if somebody does the second al-ghusl al-kamil, they're taking maximum reward. But if somebody needs to make ghusl, they have janaba or hayd or nifas, and they need to make ghusl, if they were to simply wet their entire body, okay, they jump into the shower, water encompasses the entire surface area of their skin, and they also rinse out their mouth and their nose, and they get out like 1 minute later, then this ghusl is what? Valid, sahih. Okay? But I want you to pay attention to the fact that there's important details here that need to be paid attention to, okay? So, if someone were to if someone was wanting to make ghusl, okay, but they aren't junub, or they haven't concluded hayd or nifas, so they are not on al-hadath al-akbar, they do not have major impurity, but they want to make ghusl. When would somebody make such a ghusl? Going into ihram for salat al-jum'ah, مثلا, okay, for salat al-eid. They're not necessarily on al-hadath al-akbar, but it's from the sunnah to make ghusl at that point in time. Can somebody make al-ghusl al-mujsid, okay, not al-kamil, al-ghusl al-mujsid, meaning they jump into a pool, rinse them out in the nose, they come out. 5-second ghusl, okay? The ghusl is sahih, we have no debate about that. Can they now go and pray salah? The ghusl is sahih, right? Okay. So are they upon tahara to pray salah? What do you think? Yeah? What do you think? They forgot the niyyah? But no, we're saying they made niyyah for ghusl. They made niyyah for ghusl. Tamam? Their niyyah is to make ghusl mathalan, because you know it's from the sunnah when somebody's entering into ihram to pray. The sunnah is actually to enter into ihram after a fard salah. Okay? You pray mathalan salat al-dhuhr and then you enter into ihram. So let's say somebody was going to, and then obviously a sunnah of entering into ihram as well as making ghusl. So let's say somebody is going to make ghusl. They hop into a shower, their whole body gets wet. They rinse their mouth and the nose, and then they're going to pray the fard salah after. Can you pray in that state? Yes? Anybody say otherwise? No? No. Okay? And you are right. No, you cannot pray in that state. Why? We didn't have the intention for wudu. Tamam, you didn't have the intention for wudu and you didn't actually perform wudu either. Okay? Because even having the intention for wudu, you have to do the steps of wudu as well. Okay? Like if you intended wudu and you jumped into a pool and you came out, did you make wudu even? Sure, those body parts got rinsed, but did you make wudu? No, you didn't. Right? So there's a very important rule here, and many people, it goes over their head a little bit, is that a ghusl al-mujzi' here, okay, your ghusl is sahih. So if you're making a ghusl for a reason, which is sunnah, for jum'ah, for ihram, and the likes, your ghusl is correct. But the ghusl, because the person isn't on al-hadath al-akbar, there is no rafa' of hadath akbar, لحتى يرفع الحدث الأصغر. Okay, very important rule here. If the person, now let's say the person was upon al-hadath al-akbar, okay, the person is junub, and then they want to make ghusl for Jum'ah. So they jumped into a pool, they rinsed their mouth and their nose, and they came out. Can they now pray salah? Yes. What's the difference between the two? In the first instance, the person is not on major impurity. In the first instance, there is no hadath akbar. In the second instance, there is major impurity, there is hadath akbar. So according to the scholars, the ulama, what they say is that when somebody is making ghusl ليرفع الحدث الأكبر, when he's making ghusl to raise off himself the major impurity, also in that he raises the minor impurity as well, meaning he is upon wudu and he's ready to pray, or she's ready to pray. But if there is no hadath akbar being lifted, okay, meaning they're not on any major impurity, they're just making ghusl for the fact of it being sunnah, okay, they did not raise off themselves any major impurity to have raised off themselves a minor impurity within it. Therefore, the person who is making ghusl just from no major, without major impurity, he cannot pray, or she cannot pray after that. But if they have major impurity, they lifted it, within that they also lifted their minor impurity as well, then they can pray. Is that clear? It's very important to know, because many times I came across many brothers who used to make ghusl al-Jum'ah, they're always in a rush. They make ghusl al-Jum'ah, they come to the masjid for salah, and they pray. In their mind, they know they made the niyyah of al-ghusl for Jum'ah, but they never made wudu, and they didn't have hadath akbar, which means that they actually prayed salah without making a rafa' al-hadath al-asghar. Okay, so it's very important. However, that being said, if someone performs al-ghusl al-kamil, okay, and they do not have al-hadath al-akbar, tamam? Part of the ghusl al-kamil is yatawadda wudu al-salah, right? So they make wudu for salah within the ghusl, meaning that they perform wudu as well. So if they make al-ghusl al-kamil, even though there's no hadath akbar, no major impurity, then they're able to pray after that, because they did pray, they did make wudu within their ghusl. Is that clear? Very important, fine details to pay attention to here. Also, but very important though, to mention as well, is that regardless of whether the person, and this is applicable according to the most correct opinion, it's applicable only to the man here, regardless of whether the person has major impurity or not, and they are making ghusl. We're going to come to know after, when we take nawaqid al-Tahara, that one of the nawaqid al-Tahara is what? Something that nullifies your wudu is what? When somebody, a man, physically makes contact with his private area, his awrah. Okay, so when a man, and this is like I said, there's lots of khilaf in ulama. Some ulama say that if a person touches with shahwa, if the person had intended it or didn't intend it, if there was a man or a woman, if it's a man only to himself, if it's anybody touches a man's awrah, there's lots of khilaf. Allahu A'lam. Just to summarize for the sake of being concise, the most correct opinion when it comes to the if wudu is batil due to touching the awrah, is that touching the awrah only nullifies or invalidates wudu when it's a man who touches his own private part. For example, and that's taken directly from the wording of the hadith, okay? Because the wording of the hadith indicates that if a man touches his own, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned the male organ, he mentioned it by name, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, okay? If a man touches his own male organ, then his wudu is invalid. Tamam? So it's understood from that, if you take it in the literal sense of the text of the narration, is that if someone were to touch a man's male organ, okay, for example, let's say a mother or a father are changing their son's diaper, okay, and a man touches his son's male organ, or the mother touches her son's male organ, does it break their wudu as well? According to the most correct opinion, wallahu a'lam, is that, and this is talking about direct skin-to-skin contact, okay? Allahu a'lam, the most correct opinion is that it does not. What only nullifies wudu is a male touching his own male organ. Tamam? So, that being said, if someone is making ghusl, if a man is making ghusl, okay, and whether he has major impurity or not, okay, whether he has major impurity or not, if he is making the ghusl al-kamil, then after he makes the wudu segment of his ghusl, he by mistake touched his private part. His wudu is now invalid. His ghusl is still correct. He doesn't have to restart his ghusl, but he would have to remake wudu before he can pray. Okay, so let's say a brother is making his ghusl al-kamil, and after he completes his wudu, he washed his feet. When he's washing the rest of his body, by mistake his hand touched his private part. Okay? What happens here is he carries on completing his ghusl, but then after that he would renew his wudu in order to pray. Okay, is that clear? Wadah, inshallah? Okay. How long are we at now? I don't want to go for too long.
$37.
47? 37? But we'll just take a little bit, a few more minutes. We'll get into the nawaqid of Tahara, or the nawaqid of al-wudu. And then we'll take a little bit and then we'll conclude. So, nawaqid fi Tahara as-sughra, or things that nullify the minor purity, which is al-wudu, is different than things that nullify the major purity. Okay, so there are a number of things which nullify wudu. Okay, just to skim over them, and then we're going to go over them, inshallah. We'll go in a little bit more detail. Is that anything that exits from the two private parts, okay, from the two madakhil. Okay, anything that exits from the front or from the back, this nullifies wudu, okay, which includes the secretion of urine, mani, or defecation, ghalat. Okay, this all nullifies wudu. Some scholars, they also say that repulsive excretions from other than the two private parts, such as someone vomiting, someone bleeding, or something to that effect, okay? Losing consciousness, and by the way, I'm not saying this is qawl al-rajh, I'm just mentioning some things that scholars mention. We're going to go into it, inshallah, more detail afterwards. Losing consciousness, or sleeping, touching the private parts like we just mentioned, touching the opposite gender with a desire, like a man touching a woman with a desire, or even hatta without desire, according to some ulama, touching the opposite gender, eating camel meat, and ridda, apostasy. Okay? Okay. Okay, so the first segment, or the first part, we'll maybe just go over a little bit, inshallah, then we'll conclude. We'll conclude today's dars. From the nawaqid of al-wudu is al-kharij min al-sabilayn, or discharges from either passage, from the front or from the back. Okay, like we said, which the most common defecation al-gha'it, or passing wind. Okay, this is something being passed out from the back passage, or urination al-bawl. So defecation and urination al-gha'it wal-bawl, they nullify wudu bil-ijma'. Okay, there's no difference amongst scholars that this nullifies wudu, and this ijma' is narrated by a number of ulama, Ibn al-Mundhir, al-Nawawi, Ibn Hazm al-Shawkani, rahimahumullah. And that's taken from the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى حتى تعلموا ما تقولون ولا جنبا إلا عابر سبيل حتى تغتسلوا وإن كنتم مرضى أو على سفر أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط أو لامستم النساء فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا سعيدا طيبا فامسحوا بوجوهكم وأيديكم منه إن الله كان عفوا غفورا. So they mentioned this ayah. The shahid here is that any of you come from al-gha'it, came from relieving yourself, defecating. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that clearly and explicitly, so without a doubt, this nullifies al-wudu. Okay? And we also have in a hadith narrated by Safwan bin Asad radiyallahu anhu. He said, قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يأمرنا أن لا ننزع خفانا 3 أيام إلا من جنابة لكن من غائط وبول ونوم. Okay? So he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam or he said radiyallahu anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never used to command to us to take off our leather socks for 3 days. And this is referring to in travel. It's referring to in travel, except in the case of sexual impurity, not from the case of lakin. So he says that it's not in the case of al-gha'id wal-bawl wal-nawm. Okay, so if somebody defecates or urinates or sleeps, these are things that nullify wudu. Okay, so therefore, if somebody is traveling, like during the hadith, as mentioned in the hadith rather, if they are traveling, they can, as we said, you can wipe over your socks for how much? 3 days. So Rasulullah used to command them to not remove their socks for 3 days during the travel, to have ease during wudu, except when they needed to make ghusl because they were junub. Okay. So this hadith clearly shows that urinating and defecating invalidate wudu. Okay, it's mentioned here sleep as well, but sleep is a little bit more complex, so we're not going to touch on it right now. There's lots of detail to sleep, so we'll leave that for afterwards. But we also have a narration which mentions that about breaking wind, passing wind. Okay. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, there's a hadith عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تقبل صلاة من أحدث حتى يتوضأ. But the prayer of one, or the prayer is not accepted by the one who ahdath until he performs ablution. Okay. And we also have another narration, also from Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, and it says, لا تقبل صلاة من أحدث حتى يتوضأ قال رجل. So a man from Hadramaut, he asked, what is ahdath? What does that mean, Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu? قال فساء أو durat. He said, radiyallahu anhu, that al-ahdath, what does that refer to? It means passing of wind. So very clearly and explicitly narrated from Abu Hurairah, this hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. So therefore, we know that from this dalil that we just covered briefly, that defecating or urinating or passing wind, these are things that all break the wudu, okay? So, could somebody argue that al-hadath is only referring to passing wind in the narration? It could be misunderstood that al-hadath is only passing wind, meaning that even defecation and urination, because he's saying Abu Hurairah that the salah is not accepted from somebody who makes a hadath until they tawadda. Okay? Could it be misunderstood that al-hadath is only referring to passing wind? Okay, hadath covers passing wind, urinating, and defecating, all three. But Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he mentions adnahum, yani the very lowest form of hadath is passing wind. Okay? So, hadath also includes all three, but Abu Hurairah makes it clear that passing wind is also included as well. And then we also have another narration from a man came complaining to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, complaining to him that he thinks he feels something being expelled from his backside during salah. Meaning he thinks he passes wind during salah. He's complaining to Rasulullah about this sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he responded by saying he should not abandon his salah until he hears a sound or perceives a smell. Okay? So what does that mean? Does that mean that if somebody passes wind that has no sound and no smell, that his salah is sahih and his wudu is still valid? No. But Rasulullah, what is he doing here? The person is complaining, which is what? The person is doubtful. They don't know. They're complaining. I felt something. I don't know if something was passed or not. Okay? It's like waswas. He has waswas. Or he's in doubt. So Rasulullah told him, and this is something that I think almost everyone experiences at one point or another. You know, they're praying, they feel something. Okay, is my salah batil now? Did I pass wind? Did I not? Do I have to leave and make wudu? Do I remain in salah? So Rasulullah said that somebody shouldn't leave their salah until they hear a sound, or unless they hear a sound or perceive a smell. What does that mean? That the person, they're doubtful if they pass wind. So Rasulullah said, do not leave your salah until you're certain you passed wind. How so? By hearing a sound or perceiving a smell. But the point of mentioning the narration here is that you would leave the salah when you become certain you passed wind. Why? Because wudu is now invalidated. Okay? Also ulama like Ibn Mundhir, Ibn Hazm, and Ibn Qudama rahimahumullah, they also related an ijma' or a consensus that passing wind invalidates wudu. Okay? With this, inshallah, we will conclude. And next week we'll carry on in the nawaqid of Tahara, inshallah ta'ala. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, jazakumullahu khairan. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.